Hi. So, this is a bit unusual. So people have been kind of asking me about 6.0 Dragoon. What do I think of it? Is it good? Is it bad? Do I like it? That kind of thing. I I've not been able to give what I'd call a satisfactory answer because I can't talk to people. So here I am in a video here to talk about 6.0 Dragoon. First, I guess I should say if you randomly found this video and you're not someone I know, hello, hi, nice to meet you. But also, this video it won't contain any spoilers to the Endwalker's story. At least it shouldn't. And if I do spoil something on accident, I'm very sorry. Also, this video assumes you are familiar with the job. I'm mainly going to talk about single target, I think, since the only real change to AoE is that it now refreshes your damage buff. Finally. Also, I just wanted to say I'm definitely not an authority on anything. I'm a big dummy unga bunga melee DPS main. So please do your own research and do not blindly trust me, please. Okay, so with that out of the way, how is it? It's fine. It's mostly the same, I think. Well, it might not seem like a lot has changed, I guess, but I'd say enough has changed, but also not really. That's probably really confusing. So I'm just going to go over what actually changed. First of all, I'm going to talk about Lance Charge and Battle Litany. Lance Charge is now a 60-second cooldown. Battle Litany is a 120. Litany is also 15-second duration, which is different and weird. Putting us strictly on the minute windows pretty much means every life cycle is now delayed, in quotations, assuming you're, there's no boss jumps or anything like that. The delay can kind of be set up in the opener now, so you just sort of automatically enter Life of the Dragon at the right time if you're hitting stuff on cooldown, which seems kind of lame, I guess, at first. But in actual content, you do still have to interact with it. So if you hate that aspect of Dragoon, you'll still hate it. I think it's not really that different from Shadowbringers in practice, but I don't know. I didn't really expect SE to change a whole lot about Life of the Dragon, if I'm being honest, since it's kind of the job's main mechanic in a way. But every expansion has iterated on it in some way, so I don't know. No noticeable change is a bit disappointing, maybe. I guess it is probably a bit more clear when it's supposed to be activated now, and you'll notice that is a bit of a theme for 6.0 Dragoon in particular, I think. Next up, let's talk about Blood of the Dragon. It's gone. Rest in peace, Blue Aura. Honestly, I'm more upset about this than anyone probably should be because, I like the permanent aura thing, and now I'll have to redo my Twitter banner. But I think everyone saw this coming. They made it basically permanent already, and earliest Shadowbringers, big stuns notwithstanding. Cough, cough, Alexander Prime, cough, cough. So yeah, there's not much else to talk about here, I think. So moving on. Raiden Thrust, or Raiden Thrust, if you played a lot of Mortal Kombat, I guess. It doesn't require landing the 5-tier combat positional anymore. For the record, it was not 4 and 5, it was just 5. Either way, you don't have to do it anymore. This change kind of makes sense due to how the 90 skill works. Considering positional potency lost is pretty equal across the melee, this would have been pretty disproportionately bad for Dragoon. But I'll say I do like quirky skill ceiling stuff like this, so I will miss it. But it is a good change for, sane people. All right, now let's talk about Life Surge and Spineshatter Dive, because they now have 2 charges. Okay, so Life Surge honestly was overdue for this. You can now use it in cooldowns consistently, and it's a lot less ambiguous when you should use it. I've been asked before, like, hey, when should I use Life Surge? And I'd be like, 5-tier full thrust. And they'd be like, but what if this outlandish scenario? And I'd be like, just use it, lol, I don't know. On the other hand, Spineshatter. I hated this a lot more when it was announced. I still don't think it was a necessary change at all since EJ and Dragonfire exists. When you're actually playing, you don't really notice the change if you're hitting it when you're supposed to, i.e. in cooldowns, unless you're gonna lose a Mirage Dive. I still have not felt the need to use this skill for mobility, really, just because of elusive jump, but I guess you can do it now sometimes. My main issue, I guess, at this point with this skill is it's just kind of boring. It doesn't really do anything outside of being a gap closer that does damage. It doesn't give eyes anymore. It doesn't stun anymore. I don't know. I just wish it was more interesting. Also, I really don't like the design space of movement skills being tied to damage. They got rid of this for almost every other melee DPS but Dragoon, and I think Samurai has to deal with it to an extent. But again, we do have EJ, so I guess whatever. Also, it's like slow for a movement skill compared to other jobs. Like, I go and play like Gunbreaker, and I just go double weave a Rough Divide and instantly be there like it ain't no thing. Or Monks who just have a better AM now. And I hate how Spineshatter just has all this delay. And on top of that, you have to single weave it unless you got good ping or you're doing some other stuff, winky face. Summary is, I guess, it's just kind of boring, and you're supposed to be able to use it for movement more now, I think, but it doesn't really feel like a movement skill should, in my opinion. Also, I guess if you want to do a maiming comparison, Reaper's movement skill is just better. It doesn't do damage, so it's always available when you need it, and even though it's about as fast as Spineshatter, I would say, it lets you go back to where you were if you want to. And I think this is a pretty underrated perk, so we'll see what people can do with that. Okay, finally, last thing, I think. The 90 skill, Wyrmwind Thrust. I do like how it looks, but at the end of the day, it's just another gear skoggle. They made an entire resource around it, which is kind of weird, but alright. I mean, I don't know what else you're gonna do with the job at this point. Also, it makes your simple job bar look like a penis, because Dragoon just can't escape phallic imagery. It's really just another button you can hit when it's up and cooldowns or whenever you're gonna overcap resource. You should always get 1 in buffs, aside from the opener. There are times where you can get 2 in buffs, but it's not common. Like on a dummy, it depends on your skill speed, but you can start getting 2 in buffs at the odd lance charge windows after 120s. So like at 3 minutes, then 5 minutes, etc. In current pre-normal raid BIS, though, my skill speed leaves me at 2.46, so it seems like you have to clip to get it at 3 minutes, or do like an intentional clip earlier or something. But yeah, I think that's everything. Outside of superficial stuff like Full and Chaos Thrust getting new animations, but that doesn't really change anything, so whatever. One last thing I do want to bring up, actually, skill speed. Seems pretty bad still. I do think it's not quite as bad as it was, but I also think it's not good or worth going for. It makes things come up at weird times, and it makes it tempting to clip, and imagine clipping, am I right, fellow gamers? Haha. XD. I know we're still we're still gonna have those skill speed copium dragoons though. It always happens. The expansion, they're gonna be like, look guys, it's gonna be so good. Anyway, so now I kind of want to go over things more visually, like showing an opener and kind of talk about these things I've talked about as we go. So here we go. First thing you'll notice is I have an open GCD after the True Thrust, and that's just where I put the pod window, and I'm not podding here because I forgot to use one. I didn't feel like re-recording this. Also, Chaotic Spring is not getting Litany in this opener, but it goes back in at 2 minutes. Mostly here, since this seems to be where the 15-second party buffs are now, roughly. This double weave of surge gear is the sequencing I mentioned earlier regarding setting up auto life cycle delay, by the way. You do this and then jump next to GCD, and there you go. Double Spineshatter is at the tail end because this skill is bad and just doesn't do anything. It's still stronger than Mirage Dive and winds up in buff windows over it, but Dive really needs to not fall off ever, so that takes priority if you're going to lose it. First Wyrmwind misses buffs because you physically can't get it to it in time. A 30-second window. Auto delay happens here if your gear and jump are pressed on cooldown. Easy peasy. Second Wyrmwind also misses buffs. Lance charge at 60 is too late, especially with this skill speed. If you are forced to disconnect a GCD, then you will get 2 in the 60 window. Here's the 60 window, nothing special here. There's probably better sequencing. This was done at 2.46, and I did it like right after attaining post extreme BIS, so I was not very familiar with the timing of things. That gear needs to be on cooldown like immediately for the 120 window coming up here, probably with his skill speed, by the way. This 2-minute window is actually very cringe. I remember doing it and being like, wow, this is awful. I can't believe I'm putting this in the video. And yeah, so this OGCD arrangement is really bad. I'm still a little mad I life surged that 5 tier. The real answer there, by the way, is you just jump and you life surge the full thrust instead. And don't double weave like that, by the way. I was just really mad that I missed the life surge. So you see here, I'm not gonna burn the Wyrmwind right away because I think I can get it under buffs. You'll see here though that I do clip very slightly. But that's the idea of how you're supposed to get 200 buffs. The 3-minute sequencing is probably wrong. Spineshatter should definitely be used over Mirage Dive in there. Same thing with the 2-minute window, by the way. It should have been a Spineshatter. As far as using both surges, that might be a little sus. But buffed is better than unbuffed. And if it's better in the 2-minute window, that would make the 2-minute window super cloggy. And if it's in the 4-minute window, then we're back to the Good old days of Dragoon OGCD traffic jam, baby. Not that it ever left. Alright, so this is the 4-minute window. It's a bit... The sequence is a bit better. But God, I am a coward, and I should have just gone for that Gear Nest double weave like a true Chad. Probably could have gotten that Spineshatter in, although, again, I used Mirage first, because, you know, of course I did. Alright, so here's the 5-minute window coming up. This shows the double Wyrmwind Lance Charge a bit better since it doesn't clip. Again, though, sequencing could probably be better, but this late in, it's probably just a symptom of everything else being suboptimal. Dummy runs, they do be like that. Yeah, there it is. But yeah, that's it. So in summary, I guess, yeah, Dragoon is fine. It's just not as different as I'd like, maybe. I do like the gameplay, but I think at this point I mostly play it just because it's my personal choice of theme and aesthetic for things I like. Spears, melee, dragons, kind of my thing. I still see myself playing it in Savage unless I get like dared to play something else for a tier or something, or I lose a bet or something. But yeah, I still like Dragoon. These nuts across your face.